How's it going, everybody? This is Spaniard Northwest Fight Scene. I'm sitting here at Team Quest in Tualatin, Oregon. I'm sitting here with the man himself, Chael Sonnen, right after a training session, a tough training session, as you can see. We're here to talk about some things. We're going to talk about the Brian Stann fight, but I'd like to get into a couple other things. It's been a long time off, a long mental time off. Chael, talk to me. What are some things that you had to do to deal with some of that time off and that mental break?
Well, you know, I'm not any better at it than anybody else. You know, time off is time off, and you can't train without a fight coming up. That's not to say I wasn't in practice every day, but there's a tremendous difference from practicing and training. And most people don't understand that. They think anytime you go to the gym and break a sweat, that I was just training today, you know, and you're not. Training is you eat, sleep, and breathe the event. It's a full commitment. The intensity level is very high, and I wasn't able to manufacture that. You have to have the date. You have to have the opponent. You have to have the contract. So that was a big disadvantage for me. You know, and I'm still dealing with it. I'm still trying to come out of it and get back to a little better form. But you know, eventually you run out of time. It's a big clock to the finish line, and the finish line's here. So we're gonna walk out there and fight anyway.
Now you're fighting opponent Brian Stann coming up October. Where are you at in your preparation and your training?
I'm done. This was it. Last workout was right now. Last training day. Again, we'll work out next week, but no more training. I got a lot of weight to lose in 7 days. So 7 days from tomorrow, 8 days. So it's going to be a really hard week. It'll be very uncomfortable and unpleasant, and not just for me, just for every fighter on the card. It's just that time.
Now tonight, man, it looked really, really good. Your hands looked great. You trained with a guy, Clayton Hires, is that his name? Talk about him and training with him.
Well, Clayton Hires is my head trainer. He's also the head boxing coach for Team Quest. We're down here at Scott McQuarrie's gym. He's my head MMA coach. And Clayton is the head boxing coach and head trainer. I mean, it's Clayton's job to make sure we're in shape and on weight and sleeping enough and all that really unpleasant 24-hour-a-day, you know, fatherly type role. And he's awesome. You know, Clayton's claim to fame, if you ask him, is he was one of the entourage for Marvin Hagler. That's what he sees as his biggest accomplishment, was just being a sparring partner for Marvin Hagler. And I knew him for about 2 years, and I finally looked him up on, I think it's called Ring Report, Boxing Report, BoxingDigest.com. And he beat Floyd Mayweather Sr. He beat a number of great fighters. He never talked about it. You ask him whatever he did, and I was just one of the guys with Marvin. And you know, the reality was he was fighting for world titles all the way back in the '80s. He fought for the Army. He's an amateur, trying to make Olympic teams. And so he's been around forever. But you know, aside from his own credentials, he's a top-level coach. And first and foremost, he's a motivator.
Now, speaking of boxing, are you a fan of boxing? Did you watch the Mayweather fight and that controversy recently?
I loved it. I loved it, and you know, the best part of that whole fight was when Floyd's post-fight conference, when Larry Merchant says, well, so walk us through this, and he really wanted Floyd to apologize. And Floyd wouldn't even acknowledge the hug. He just said, oh, you know, right hook or left hook to a straight right. And he just stayed with it. He would not break. And that was the favorite part for me. But you know, Floyd was well within the rules. You got to protect yourself. And you know, these guys are out there making man love all the time, giving high fives and hugging one another. You deserve to be knocked out if you're trying to hug a man in the middle of a fist fight.
Right, right. Now let's go back a little bit. You had a training partner, Yushin Okami. He fought Anderson. What are your thoughts on that fight?
Well, on Yushin in general, I mean, thank God he was out here. It's been slim pickings. You know, a lot of the guys around here kind of leaving, and Rick Story had a fight, so he was taking some time off. Mike Pierce had a fight, so he had some time off. Yushin was all I had. As far as the fight itself, that wasn't the Yushin. Yushin didn't take his skills. Yushin has a lot more skills, and he left him in the locker room. And anybody you fight, my own fight with Brian Stann, Brian can beat me, and he may beat me. But my job is to make sure that he fights me at 100%, me with all my skills, me with my pressure, my training, my experience. And if he beats me at my best, I won't lose any sleep over that. But if I don't go out and compete well, and I don't think that Yushin went out and brought his tools with him, that's hard to live with.
Now, you're coming up, you're fighting Brian Stann coming up. This is your first fight back. What are your thoughts on your opponent, Brian Stann, and the fight coming up?
I think he's great. I think he's a great fighter. When he was when he was green, right out of the military, football background, not MMA, he won a world title in the WEC upper weight class. You know, as a guy that didn't know anything. Now he's a complete fighter. You know, he beat Chris Lieben, who's my friend and teammate, training partner. I could never beat Chris Lieben like that, I can tell you that much. You know, I could never knock Chris Lieben down. He knocked him down 3 times in 1 round, so, you know, that means something to me. You know, he beat some other guys, and they're tough guys. And I watched it and go, man, that means something. That's impressive. And it's a hard fight, but they all are. You know, if you took Brian Stann out of this and you put someone else in there, he's going to be hard too. You know, the UFC isn't somewhere you go to learn how to fight. It's, you know, it's the ultimate, and you know, I expect him to be tough.
Now, I heard that you wear 3 times XXX gloves. Is that true?
I think they're double X. I don't know if they're 3 times, but I believe they're double X.
Are your hands that big?
You know,
Why do you wear it?
Like... Nobody's ever said to me, "Wow, you got big hands" or something, but I can't squeeze in anything smaller. Yeah, try to get your hand in there, and I can't do it. I guess I got big hands. I don't know if I got big feet too. Like the boots, I gotta wear double E. They're very hard to find. My dad had big, wide feet. You know, I think I inherited them. So.
Awesome. Now, you're a fan of wrestling. In the area, something I kind of wanted to talk about, you have your own UFC wrestling team. Talk about that a little bit and what you do in the area.
Well, you know, my partner, Kevin Keeney, he's the head coach and the backbone behind it. I'm in there every day. You know, we've been doing it for just over a decade now. We're at Westland High School, allfacewrestling.com. You know, Kevin and I made a deal with a man named Roy Pittman. We were 9 years old. We started at his club. I was 9, Kevin was 11. And he said, look, I'll teach you guys how to wrestle, but when you're done, you need to pass it on. And so we got done with college, and we're just honoring our deal. We started the club, and we're passing back what we left.
That's awesome. Well, hey, coming up soon, what do you think, like, you have to basically implement to beat Brian Stann, and what do you think is the way you're going to lose to Brian Stann?
Well, yeah, I mean, there's plenty of ways to lose a match. You know, there's just all sorts of stuff that could happen out there. And you try not to focus on it. You start thinking about his wrestling, and then all of a sudden you're caught with a knee. You start thinking about his knee, you get hit with an elbow. So, you know, it's one of those deals where, you know, you got to be pretty wide open. They say that, have you heard the expression, failure is not an option?
Sure.
That is not true. Failure is always an option. And it's the most prevalent and ready option there is, and you got to work really hard to make sure you don't fall into that option. So there's all sorts of ways to fail, but you know, more importantly, I'm trying to think about how to succeed. I got a lot of skills too. You know, I may not be as good as I was when I left, but I was the best when I left by a large margin. Me and the next best guy weren't even close. So if I brought that closer, I'm still on top by a lot.
Awesome. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to Northwest Fight Scene tonight. Good luck on your upcoming fight. Is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out to or thanks to?
Yeah, I want to thank Northwest Fight Scene. They've been covering this sport thanklessly in this area for a long time. Covered a promotion known as the FCFF, brought 13 amateurs all the way to the UFC. 1 judge, 1 referee, and 1 timekeeper are all in the UFC now. Largely thanks to Northwest Fight Scene getting the word out and the exposure for our area. I'm truly appreciative.
You heard it here. Chael Sonnen, Spaniard, IntevviewFightScene.com. Thank you very much.